Hi, everyone out there in the world of YouTube. Thanks for tuning in, stopping by, and checking out my channel. My name is Jacqueline Anderson, and of course, everybody calls me Jackie, so you can too. I am a certified public accountant in the state of Georgia, and I have a featured guest today. So you know what that means. He is on his way to becoming a CPA. So my guest today is Mr. David Mason. He's going to tell us how he landed in the accounting profession and ended up with a double major and how he hopes and plans to use the CPA credentials. So we'll get started with Mr. Mason. I'll let him introduce himself, tell us a little bit about himself, basically what's the name on his birth certificate, where is he from, how old is he currently, because we need to know that as he's getting started, and give us any other information as we learn about his journey and where he's headed as he becomes a CPA. So I'll turn the virtual mic over to you, Mr. Mason.
Thank you so much, Ms. Jackie. First and foremost, thank you so much for having me. This is truly a great experience for me. You look amazing. You're doing your thing, and you got your CPA. So it's so amazing to see that, especially from one of our own Black women doing their thing out here. So super excited to be here. So my name is David Mason III. I am from Detroit, Michigan, raised in Canton, Michigan. So it's kind of like it's the metropolitan area of Detroit, so it's really a really mixed, diverse area. So went to a high school that had almost 7,000 kids. So it was a very big high school, very big mix of different ethnicities and backgrounds. Ended up going to Augustana College, and I actually went to two colleges. I went to Valparaiso University, where I played Division I football at. I originally studied civil engineering, and then once that and football kind of got too hard and some things were going on with the program, decided to kind of take a pivot and went into marketing. And I ended up transferring schools to Augustana College in Illinois, and that is where I actually ran into accounting for the first time.
Wow, okay. So you were a marketing major initially.
Yeah, so I was a civil engineering major,
Okay.
and then I went to marketing, and then
you transferred, but you were playing Division I football. So, okay, I know we're going to get into the accounting, but was your ultimate goal to end up in the NFL, or were you on scholarship and that was just a means to an end, playing football?
So for me, it was more so because of my size. Like, I'm not the tallest person in the world, so I'm about 5'9", 5'10". So we'll go 5'10". I like to say 5'10".
Okay, we'll give it.
So we'll go 5'10". And I always knew growing up, looking at my parents, that I wasn't going to be the tallest person in the world. But I always knew that college was something that I wanted to do. My father, he played college football, but he didn't graduate. But my mom graduated and got her master's. So my dad really pushed me to be like the first Black man in my family to graduate from college.
Okay.
So he really pushed that on me. And seeing college football growing up, I really just wanted to go to college. I knew the NFL was just, the guys were just a little bit too big, and I just wouldn't have the size to make it. But my dream was always to go to college.
Oh, the ultimate goal was to graduate college, get your 4-year degree.
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so then you ended up or landed in Illinois.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, and you switched majors.
Yeah.
Okay, and what's the little backstory on that?
So the backstory behind switching majors is, well, playing Division I football and engineering, it really sounds good. And Valparaiso at the time was like the number 6 engineering school in the nation. Okay. So you talked about my scholarship. Majority of my scholarship was covered through engineering. So I had a STEM program through my high school that was all geared to engineering. Like my whole life, I was told you gotta be a doctor, an engineer, a lawyer to make it. And I was the nerdy kid that played with Legos and liked architecture, but was super gifted on a football field. So kind of fit in with both crowds. So it's kind of really fun.
The ideal student athlete for real.
Yeah, really trying to be the best version of that I really could be. And going through that, I think, like, really, if I'm being honest, my senior year of high school, I was having a little bit of doubts of engineering, but because of what I had heard my whole life, I was like, man, I'm gonna just go ahead and do it. I've already got a scholarship for it. Okay. Like, if I tell people that I don't even want to do it and I'm losing a little bit of passion for it, they're gonna look at me like I'm crazy because I just got this huge scholarship for it. They're like, what are you doing? So ended up just trying it out, and it ended up going very terribly. I'll be transparent about it. My lowest GPA at Valpo was a 2.19 or 2.3, somewhere in there. It was
Okay.
like really bad. And it was really hard. And it was a parent where they said you can either change your major or you can be in academic probation.
Okay.
So when that was the case, it was like, okay, just thinking on my feet. That's kind of like the one thing I really like about myself, that I can think really fast on my toes and make quick decisions that are good decisions. And I was just like, you know what? My dad's in car sales. He's in business. It's worked well for our family so far. Blessed us with the ability to move from the inner city to a suburban area. And I saw that, like the whole transition, and what it did for us. And I was like, you know what? Apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. I'm gonna go to marketing, and
Okay.
that's where I got into marketing.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm glad you added that little tidbit because sometimes we do struggle
Yeah.
academically, or something's going off, kind of throws us off track. But this goes to show you can get back on track, or you can
Yes.
regroup and
Oh yeah.
figure out, another option, or figure out what's best in this situation. So you
Yeah.
changed your major, and somehow some led you to accounting. So,
Yeah.
so
So yeah,
go ahead.
that was like a really like almost kind of traumatic experience, because going from high school, I was always like high honor roll, 3.5s, 4.0s,
Okay.
3.8s. And I went from that to a 2.1. And I had never gotten that before in my life. So I was just like, oh my goodness, what am I gonna do? So the school, Augustana College, that I got into, um, they took me in on a trial basis. So basically what it was is, if I didn't get a certain GPA, I would have had, basically I wouldn't be fully accepted into the school.
Okay.
So, and they were on tri semesters at the time. So I came in my first tri semester, and there was an accounting class. I had to take accounting 101 as a as like one of the requirements for the marketing degree.
Mm-hmm.
And I was on top of my grind, and and I'm a true believer of your environment really can shape your outcomes,
Mm-hmm.
because the environment was so much better for my learning than where I was at. Um, you know what I mean? It was a little bit more diverse, not as diverse, but it was just a little bit more. And then
Okay.
there's a lot more. It was a liberal arts school as well, so a lot of the thinking, a lot of the processes were a lot different than my previous school. So I was able to get a lot more one-on-one teaching, and with that came my professor, Dr. Nadia Schwartz. She was my accounting teacher, and we were playing Monopoly in my accounting 101. They make us play Monopoly and basically roll the dice, and whatever you land on, you got to make sure, if you buy like the train station, you got to be like, all right, train station for 800, debit, credit, what do you debit for? And just write down all the bookkeeping.
Okay.
And I was really good at it. And I always played Monopoly. I always liked money. So my parents used to always play Monopoly, always won. And then my teacher saw that, and she was like, you really have a real knack for accounting. There's a accounting scholarship through the Illinois CPA Society, called the Mary T. Washington Wiley Scholarship. She was the first Black woman in public accounting with her CPA. So that's who it was named after.
Okay.
And just for diversity, and diverse and minority students, because it was an online scholarship, I didn't really believe in it. I'd applied on so many online scholarships. I was just like, oh, this lady's crazy. Like, I'm
Haven't
sure.
we all? Like you
And
just
my
submitted into
mentality,
the black hole, right? You just submitted one
right,
of a million.
right, exactly. I'm like, nobody's gonna actually see this. Like, you see the people online. I won 1.8 million in scholarships, and I won covered my whole education. I'm just like, how? I'm not seeing it.
Right.
Like,
I don't know that person. I don't know.
I don't get it. Like, I can't write with my left hand. I'm sorry. Like, I can't. I don't have this one or whatever. So just looking at that, I was kind of like in doubt, and in my mind too, because of my situation. I was solely focused on getting the highest grade I could get, and just making sure I could even stay in the school.
Mhm.
So long story short, the last possible day that I could apply for this scholarship, she literally goes and she shows up to my football practice. And at the end of the practice, she had pulled up and she was just like, hey, this scholarship is due today and you're going to fill it out. And she drove me back up. And the thing is, like, it wasn't far away, but she literally told me, come right to her office. We went to her office. We filled it out that night. And that night, in order to do the scholarship, they made me an accounting minor. So she literally was like, okay, look, you already have one advisor. She really took me under her wing. She was like, I'm going to make you one of my advisees. So I'll be your advisor for the accounting minor. And this is going to be your thing. You can still make it work. She had looked at my whole profile, had it all pulled up. Like, you can make this work and still graduate on time or even make it a major if you wanted to. And one day in December, I'm lifting weights in the gym and I get an email alert and I was one of 23 students selected.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So that was a catalyst. Here you are. And how long ago was that? Wait.
So that was, I'm trying to think, because that was the winter of 2019 going into 2020.
Okay.
That was when that happened. And then there was a lot that happened. So when I got there, I knew nothing about accounting. And all the other students that were there, I can't say kids because we were all over 18 and a lot of people were older than me. And in grad school, everybody was talking about the big four. And everybody was talking about the big four this, big four that. I literally only knew monopoly and bookkeeping at this point. I walk in there and me just being me, I asked, the guy, I was like, hey, what's the big four? Like, who are these people you're talking about? And they laughed. Everybody kind of was like laughing at me, like, oh my God, like this guy doesn't know anything about accounting. Like, what are you doing? How did you even get this scholarship? How did you do how did you get this? And I was thinking to myself, like, man, they're kind of right. Like, how did I get this? Like, it doesn't make sense. And it's kind of, everybody is kind of maybe have that moment where they feel like they're outclassed or they're in an environment, especially if you're like a minority in a predominantly white job or environment. You've always kind of felt like, man, am I supposed to be here or do I belong? Is my skill set as qualified as theirs, or I had to probably do even more just to get there. And that's kind of what I was feeling, but I couldn't let myself get too far down. I couldn't get down about it. So I just decided to put my head down. And while everybody else was out socializing, I just stayed in my hotel room and I looked up every single company that was going to be at the event for the mock interviews. And the lady told us, and I took so many notes. The lady was just like, for the mock interviews, you can bring your notes in. And I was like, oh, it's game over. Because I've done interviews my whole life. Being recruited for football, I was recruited by multiple schools. I used to get pulled out of class all the time in like the beginning of the day and have interviews for colleges all day long. So I was just like, at least if they get to learn my personality and my work ethic, and I have notes and I talked about like the pillars of their principles that they follow. I looked up technology. And if I knew, like coming from engineering, if I could somehow talk about Excel or I could talk about technology, I know that. I don't know any accounting, but I know this. So I literally tried to gear the whole conversation to that. And, God really blessed me with the craziest thing because they told us it was a mock interview, but if they wanted to pursue you after, they could. And I got offered by every person that interviewed me for an internship.
Congratulations. Also, everything's just falling into place.
Yeah. And at this time, I'm still an accounting minor. So I'm not even a full major yet.
So you were offered internships.
Yep. I was offered internships and I was offered by every big four and I was offered by there was about at least 25 30 plus accounting firms that also came. We had a social event where they had us talking. It was kind of like it was almost like a speed dating, but it was with the accounting firms, and it was really cool how they set it up with food and stuff like that. And just my training for the moment was like, don't eat the food. We do eat something small, something light, like the etiquette, starting conversations and bringing people together and stuff like that. So just using my social skills to my best advantage to start conversations and make relationships with people. And that's what really got me in the door.
Okay, cool. So we'll fast forward a little bit through undergrad. So now tell us, so when did you actually graduate?
Yeah.
What year? What's your minor or major? And how old are you currently?
Yes. So I graduated this past 2021 in December, and I just started with Deloitte in June. So I just started with Deloitte in June. I'm currently 23 years old.
23, already at the big four.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
awesome. You know,
And before this, I was working at a grocery store. You know what I'm saying? Like I was working at a grocery store, then I was working at my local gym because I graduated, I was supposed to graduate the spring of 2021, but because I transferred and picked up the major, I graduated in December. And then my start date wasn't until, well, my original start date was in August. So there was really a time period where I was just at home and I was just working at the local gym, knowing that the Deloitte was coming in my back pocket. So
right.
really
Okay.
yeah.
So you graduated in December 2021. And what's your degree?
So my degree is in accounting and marketing. I ended up switching to the accounting major, and I have the marketing major.
Great. Okay. And then you had a job offer under your belt as well.
Yep.
So you graduated from the college in Illinois.
Yep. Augustana College in Illinois.
And are you moving back home, or are you gonna stay? Is it in Chicago area or?
Yeah. So I originally got offered in the Chicago area, and my choices were between EY and Deloitte. EY, I'm so
I be
sorry.
bragging, y'all. Can you see this now?
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Those are like the last two it came down to. And EY was gonna fly me from my school. Me and my teammates, we had like a house on campus that we had together. They were gonna fly me from Illinois back to Detroit because everybody, I was homesick. I was in Indiana, when I was in Illinois. The cultural differences were a lot different. So I was like, I'm ready to go home.
Okay.
So I told everybody, I was like, hey, I appreciate the Chicago offers, but I really want to go back to Detroit.
Okay.
EY was like, no problem. We were right downtown Detroit, perfect for you. My grandmother, where I first lived at, was 6 minutes away from the office. Okay. So I'm like, perfect. And then Deloitte was like, what did EY offer you? Here. And you can work in Detroit too with just a phone call. So I signed. So
okay, which you had already interned with them and had developed relationship and had some connections.
Oh yeah, but I did a couple of programs like with EY. Like they had a couple of like smaller Zoom calls and seminars, and I had a good relationship with them. So they're like a big rivalry. I'm still learning about the rivalry. I guess it's like so yeah.
Okay, so have you actually started at Deloitte?
Yes. Oh yeah, I started Deloitte. So now I'm actually have my first couple of 60-hour weeks. So my job specifically, I'm still had to get the technology in there. So I'm in the partnership solutions group. It's kind of a newer group as like the last 10, 15 years. So basically what we do is we are the technology behind partnership allocation. So the really big partners, they have to have their money allocated, whether it's foreign entities or US entities. We do all the allocation behind that. And we basically do like the hard coding and soft coding through Excel and through our own software that we use at Deloitte. So I help test, and I do a lot of like Excel testing and regression testing and all kinds of technology fun stuff that deals with tax. So specifically tax.
A technical analysis.
Yeah.
Data. Okay. That seems pretty cool. And you can seem to incorporate maybe your engineering background and expertise with that technology.
Oh yeah. And then my advice for any Black young accountants that are watching this, I didn't know this till it was too late, but I told all of my young brothers and sisters that was behind me in my school, if you still have time on your credits, add data analytics as a minor, or take an Excel class or any type of data analytics class, because the difference in pay that you will get for having that expertise is totally different. And there's so many more job opportunities you can get. And whether you get your CPA or not, you'll always have a job. Always have a job.
Okay, so with that, what do you think played more or factored into the you being a great candidate or you getting the position over someone? Was it the accounting background, or you ultimately being a CPA, or was it that data expertise and knowledge you had?
I feel like I feel like the knowledge of me having a technical background was definitely a really big part, but I also did VITA. So it's the volunteer tax
Okay.
that they have in colleges. If you have a chance to do that as well, if you're into tax. Now, if you're into audit, another thing that I did in my school, I got a chance to do a thing called audit seminar where I actually audited our school. So it was like it was a 2 credit class, but it didn't feel like a 2 credit class. But basically, we there was like 8 departments of the school, and they split us up into groups of 2. And me and my partner, we ended up auditing the student government. So we
Mhm.
like audited their processes, and no, we audited the Office of Student Life. That's what we audited. So
Okay.
we got a chance to like work with how much money was going towards entertainment, and then like auditing the processes, making sure their books were up to date, making sure the
Okay.
security of the office. Like one of our tests was to try to steal the school credit card. Like, it was all kinds of funny stuff,
Okay.
and
Kind of
yeah,
fun, but
yeah, it was
you
kind of
that
fun, but it was
experience.
also serious. And we actually presented our case to the CFO of our school. So, I mean, it was a really big deal, and it was taken seriously. And yeah, it was really cool.
Right. Okay. So now that you've already gotten your foot in the coveted door
Yes.
of a big four, what is your timeline for becoming a certified public accountant?
Yes. So initially, my plan was when I graduate, I'm going to have 8 months where I can just lock in and knock it all out. But life happened, and that did not happen. And basically, the first thing that happened was Deloitte, based off need base, they pushed my job, my start date up, which was I was okay with at the time because I was working at my local gym, and the pay difference was totally different. So I was like, you know what? I'll take it. I'll start right away. Like, where do you need me? Put me there. And also, what had happened was I was doing my studying. I started with FAR because everybody says FAR is the hardest,
Okay.
financial station regulation. So they were talking about like, oh, that's going to be the hardest. And I was like, okay, so I'll start with FAR. I think it's got the most material. I end up just to make sure because I know I was working with my advisors and they were like, hey, Michigan is switching to 120 credits to eligibility to be able to sit for the CPA, and Illinois was still at 150. So they were trying to figure out what credits I needed and may not need. So I just took the $100 and just sent in my transcripts to the accounting society and the accounting board. And of course, going through what we go through, I was one class short of what I needed. So I ended up actually taking a 4 week accounting governmental. It was a governmental and non-for-profit accounting class while working. So that's what I just got done really doing like 2 weeks ago. So
Okay. To
yep.
meet the testing requirements for the state of Michigan, so
Yes.
you can
Yep.
even be qualified or allowed to sit for the exam. So
Yep.
you're getting that out of the way. So even before you even start testing, you're getting the work experience, which is
Right.
fantastic. That's great.
Yeah. And the thing about the process was it was kind of depressing at first because I was halfway through the FAR book. Like I was studying Deloitte. Shout out to them again. They gave us the Becker books. They provided us with the Becker whole program, online virtual training with the actual books as well. And I was working on that. And I was working really hard, studying every day at my local library. And then I get the email back saying, you're going to need to take another class.
Okay.
So it was like, man, so I basically got to put a halt to studying kind of and really try to buckle down on getting this class done, but also finding a class online that was affordable and was actually regionally accredited or nationally accredited to make sure it counts towards the CPA. So that in itself took a lot of research as well.
Got it.
So,
Okay. Because you had already graduated.
yep,
So
I had already
so
graduated.
you
And
didn't
then
necessarily need it for your degree requirement.
correct. And that was like the biggest thing for me trying to figure that out and trying to manage like, okay, do I want to do this now? Because I had to do all of this stuff. But then I was like, you've
Oh,
been through so much. You
now,
got to do it now. You got to do it. Like, there, because I'm the type of person I feel like, you know, God gives his hardest battles to his toughest soldiers. And I feel like when you're going through hard times, it's because there's something great waiting at the other side. So I was like, man, I know I'm supposed to be a CPA because the devil just throwing everything at me right now. Like, this is insane. And so what I decided to do is I waited till I started my job to get some a little bit of money underneath me so I could go ahead and pay for the class myself. Didn't want to put that on my parents as they helped with my education when I transferred to the D3 school I was at.
okay.
So I was like, I don't want to put that on my parents. And I'm gonna be mature and I'm gonna pay for this out of my own pocket. And because of the workload at my job, I didn't necessarily have to have as much work. It was just job training at first.
Okay.
So I wanted to take a class that I knew was like 4 to 6 weeks and I could just knock it out and work at my own pace and before it got too busy. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Well, we're gonna take a break right here. We'll come back with part two after, since you told us you had to halt your study. So we'll pick up where you are now and if you jump back in or you concentrate on just learning your job or what your game plan will be in passing far or picking back up where you left off and see where you're going and how you doing working in the big four, how you fitting in, what does it look like, and what is it, those misconceptions, or is it true about grinding and working 60, 80 hours coming up busy season with a tax extension deadline coming up? So we'll get your thoughts on that. So tune in or make sure to click on part two. We'll be right back.